just fucks me up every single time. Okay. Okay.
Diddy's former personal assistant, who they are calling Mia,
Okay. Anyway,
took the stage.
so it's Sarah Schnecker. If you don't know, she is pictured. Supposedly, she had lunch. She had lunch with Cassie very shortly, right after Diddy got arrested. This is her pictured here with Diddy, and here is Cassie the day when she met up with her. This was spotted right after Diddy's arrest. She met up with this woman and they both had lunch together in a public place. This is both of them together. Obviously, I'm wondering if on cross-examination, which cross-examination is supposed to start today, they're going to bring up the fact that, hey, you and Cassie, like, are y'all just friends or maybe y'all colluded to fucking make up a story to get this guy to go to jail? Obviously, Cassie got some money, and this was the picture of them having dinner or lunch or whatever you want to call it, or drinks, right after, like immediately after Diddy got arrested, they linked up. So now Sarah has taken a stand, and I would imagine that not only to protect herself because she lists herself or identifies herself as a victim, because she accused Sean Combs of sexually assaulting her as well. I think because she had some type of career in the entertainment business, sometimes it could have dire consequences if you're the woman who's coming out to say, yo, he did something to me. So I think for her, maybe that's why she's using the moniker Mia, but Sarah Schnecker is not using a real name. She's using a pseudonym, which is called Mia, okay? So yesterday she detailed, really being involved and seeing a lot of the abuse of Cassie, but then she said she got abused herself. She got hit, pushed, things were thrown at her. And then she later said Diddy raped her on a private jet. And she also pretty much admitted that she never told Cassie about this. And, she broke down in tears multiple times, crying profusely, saying that she basically couldn't believe. She wanted to take this to her grave. Okay, that's what she basically said. Okay, can I see this? No, I can't. That's not right. So, yes, sir. Okay. Okay. So, I think this is an updated picture of how she looks. All right. Now, let me just play my man Matthew Russell. Let's see what he got going on.
Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Now, day 13 of U.S. versus Sean Combs. It's Friday, it's the end of week 3, and I'll say right from the top, we're going to have another ebook out about week 3. It's already well underway, but there's still some testimony to go. Yesterday, the victim, known as Mia, people have figured out her name, and we're not reporting it even in this format. She testified all on direct about her going to work for Combs Enterprises, her 5 days in a row without sleeping when they first hired her. Sounds kind of like a cult in a way. And then several incidents of sexual assault in the closet of Diddy's place of residence, in various places, jumping on, apparent drugging with 2 shots of vodka that made her feel totally out of it, and she woke up on a chair many hours later. This is an echo, actually, of the many civil cases we've been covering here for some time. There's case after case, many of them brought by Tony Busby, showing with a stock photograph of a date rape drug that was apparently poured into these things. So this one has legs, and so for that reason, apparently, they've decided to deploy Brian Steele on the cross. He said it'll only be an hour and a half or 2 hours this afternoon. So look for some. We're going to be live tweeting it. You can.
Oh wow, Brian Steele is going to be doing the cross. I keep telling you, he's a pit bull. Yesterday was an emotional testimony. It was an emotional testimony by Mia, aka Sarah Schnecker, and I had said, would they bring back Maria Estavo, who did, I think, a pretty good job with Cassie. She did a really good cross and a good recross, because by the time Cassie got off the stand, Cassie almost admitted that, number one, she collected $30 million from this. She still loves Diddy. She admitted some of the stuff that she was doing. She was cheating on her current guy with Diddy. And, she honestly was kind of into some of this stuff, right? Now, that's as much as you're going to get as trying to throw some mud in the water of the star witness, which was Cassie Ventura, who they had on a time crunch because she had to give birth. She was pregnant at the time, by the way. She did give birth. And, yeah, you know, I think they created some doubt there, right? Some doubt. And, again, the defense, they're playing defense right now. This is the offense or the prosecutor's time to lay out the case and the defense in cross-examining. They're just trying to create some doubt, credibility issues. Yo, this motherfucker might be lying. They got a reason to lie. They want to make some money. They want to do this. And I think Estavio did a good job with that. I'm actually surprised that Brian Steele is going to be deployed in this manner against the victim. And again, don't let me and my bias kind of like make you think I'm talking down on these attorneys. Brian Steele is one of the best attorneys, right? And he definitely knows how to, have an iron fist and a velvet glove and deal with a victim who is supposedly a victim of sexual assault. So he's not just, I know I call him a pit bull, but it's just because we've just seen him stand his ground. And, whether it's a witness, but specifically when it's a witness that's claiming that they are a victim, you don't want to badger them. You don't want to be like, okay, we caught you in this lie. Like, these people, they're crying, they're stopping, you know what I mean? And that might look bad in front of a jury. Anyway, so we're going to have Brian Steele, who's going to be doing this cross, right? Let me see what else. All right, well, let's kind of go there. And look like they might be trying to take a look into this drugging angle, that maybe Diddy was drugging people. By the way, here's the thing, too, and I just thought about Sarah, who's Mia. I believe that Sarah has filed a civil suit, and this is going to come out on direct. Well, not direct, redirect. Basically, I don't think they asked her on direct. Did they ask her if she has any litigations against Sean Combs currently, or if she plans one? Because if she's going by pretty much a pseudonym, so she's damn near Jane Doe. If she's going by a pseudonym in court, she would probably be a Jane Doe in a civil suit, right? She has, at least from her story, actual claims against Diddy. And keep in mind, 100 people have filed lawsuits against Diddy. Seems right now the government's only using 2 as victims of sexual assault, that is. So, it gives a good amount of credence to what she would be saying. And the mere fact she could say, hey, the same guy I'm suing civilly, I was in his case criminally as a victim, that's going to make the civil case be bolstered up a little bit. Or maybe Diddy already settled with her. Who knows? We will see. Let me just keep listening to this intro.
They've decided to deploy Brian Steele on the cross. He said it'll only be an hour and a half or 2 hours this afternoon. So look for we're going to be live tweeting it. You can find it. It's going to be something else. Yesterday, just to finish that up, there was the other witness was Deontay Nash, who was in finer form than usual. First question, Donaldson, how are you, Deontay? Answer, blessed. And he went from there. But he finally did get off the stand, and Mia began. I don't mean to make it's something. I think that this is a worse witness for Combs than Cassie in a way, because you're really talking about violent, non-consensual. His defense is going to be, she kept working for me. That's going to be the defense. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and again, it appears that Mia, even though there's messages that appear where she is maybe, I don't want to necessarily say flirting with Diddy, or, might be in favor of Diddy, nothing suggests that she was ever in a relationship with him or had at any point consented to sexual activity with him. It's not one of those things like, oh yeah, they used to fuck consensually all the time, and that one time she wasn't with it. She's saying, I was just working for the nigga. I never wanted to fuck the nigga. Okay? One of the times she brings up that Diddy, she was sleeping, she wakes up, Diddy's on top of her. And she was, I don't know why she was sleeping in a bunk bed style type of situation. She says Diddy forced his penis inside of her. The next time it was on a private jet, where she was copping a plea to him saying, yo, come on, let's not do this here. People could see. And Diddy was like, nigga, come on up in this room. You getting this dick. So supposedly he fucked her on the plane. You get what I'm saying?
Now, there are other cases in SDNY. There's even other rap-related, hip-hop-related cases that nobody cares about anymore. Remember Tekashi 6ix9ine? I know he's still out there making music. Well, The guy who carjacked him, famously, is still about to be sentenced for something else. We're going to go by a leaf blower here, and I'm sorry about that. And I'm sorry for these other cases for that reason. Now, there's another musician, Jeezy Mullah, also known as Deshaun McBean. He's in a murder for hire trial, and his co-defendant is going to be getting a delay in the trial. Will it delay his trial? There's going to be a hearing next week, and we're going to have to cover it, and we will cover it. There's K-Flock, who is a much more recent case, a drill rapper from the Bronx who was convicted at trial with Inner City Press, I believe the only media covering it daily, and it was really something. It had cooperators. It was what I'm calling real RICO. Not to say this other thing is not terrible, but RICO with shot people and
violence. People usually associate it with violence, even though really RICO, some of the early uses was like fraud with organizations.
Drug dealing, and even the new crimes such as unemployment fraud, and of the Arizona Department of COVID things. They did it from the Bronx. So there are those cases. Now there's also a UN case that we're...
Okay, all right, cool. So, Bet, looks like we are good. All right, people. And so let me ask y'all a question. Well, nah, I won't even ask the question. So they're at lunch now. Should I go to the summary or just read through all the tweets, right? Read through all the tweets. We're going to be here anyway, right? All right, cool. Chat, I'm only on coffee right now. Thank you guys for being here. Love you guys. You got listen, you got to tell a friend and tell a friend. We're streaming over the Academy channel. Some people feel like we have taken a break from covering the trial. We have not. King Akademiks will be back on trial coverage on Monday, okay? So this was a week to kind of get kicked looking a little good, all right? But on Monday, absolutely, we'll be back on all channels that we normally stream on. All right? Okay, cool. So let's go. So this was the issues they brought in before the jury came in. It says, what's the issue with the charge? Shapiro says, we object to column. The column title, escort. It just says, meaning the title. It says, they're connecting up the stay with the hotel with the escorts travel to city. Shapiro then says, listen, we don't know if the escorts traveled to New York, that they actually went to London or hotel. AUSA says, we discussed. Shapiro then says, the government can make an argument that inference can be made. Say, is that fair? They agreed. Okay, so they took the title out. So looks like the government has this like really dope chart, right? They got a little chart saying, this is a RICO, this is sex trafficking, keeping people to move from here to here to here to here, and they have turned it into a chart saying, this is the escort's name, travel from blah, 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 blah. And Diddy's lawyer's like, no, that looks too crazy, because that's not all the way true in every situation. Cool. All right. Comey then says, we have records like go to room, so-and-so in the hotel. We can remove the header. We will just show that the escort was going to the hotel where the reservation was under the name of Frank Black. And the judge says, what about this one? It says, it's an escort, Jules Theodore. Shapiro then says, we'll take what the court gives us. The judge says, anything on the summary exhibits? We're running into the jury's time. Let's get started. Can we have Mia back? Mia then gets in. Everybody all rise. Smizer then says to Mia, did you call the other employees' family? Mia says, yes, I was surrounded by them, okay? By the way, this is the finishing of the direct of yesterday. It says, and everyone referred to each other that way. It says, you dated an employee? It says, yes, Matt, the sound engineer. So apparently she was dating Matt, who was a sound engineer for Diddy. Keep in mind, Mia was a personal assistant of Diddy, if you guys don't know. She's going under a pseudonym. Her real name is Sarah Schnedker, as we have kind of deduced by, a little bit of putting two and two together, really, right? It says, were you and Matt able to hang out normally? He says, no. We had an apartment together in New York, but we rarely were there at the time. He says, why did you go to South Africa? He says, Puff told me to accompany Cassie. She was shooting a music video, or actually a movie, sorry. AUSA says, what happened there? Mia says, well, Cass had called Puffy cheating on her with Gina. She was devastated. AUSA says, well, what were interactions with Mr. Combs? Mia says, they were on the phone. He was in Miami. Then she stopped answering the call. So it looked like she was upset because Diddy was being slick. It looked like anytime she would go out of town, if Diddy didn't go with her, Diddy would be with another woman. And what happened is Diddy's famous. People are taking pictures of Diddy with this new girl. I'm pretty sure he used to gaslight her, like, no, that's just some girl. But looked like he's either hugged up or something with the girl. And allegedly, at least from what Lauren Collins said, someone takes a picture of Diddy and Gina and sends it to Cassie and says, "Oh, you guys look cute." And they legitimately thought that was Cassie. And Cassie's like, "What the fuck? That's not me. That's that other." Like, you know, he realized that Diddy's cheating. Cool. AUSA says, "I'll read the blue messages." Okay, that's KK. And you could read the gray. That's yo. She said, says, "I'll read the blue messages." Now, if we're thinking about an iPhone, if the messages are blue and it's Christina Karam, that means they have her phone? You get what I'm using or putting together? The AUSA said they're going to read the message in the blue. You know how iPhone is, right? The blue is you, the gray is them. If the AUSA says they're about to read the blue, are they reading from a seized or whatever copy of Christina Karam's phone? Because remember this, I told you, this name keeps coming up. But if she takes the stand against Diddy, listen, grand opening, grand closing. I'm wondering if they have her phone. We haven't heard nothing from her in a while, even though we did hear a denial of the civil stuff, okay? So you read the gray, that's you. So she wrote, P. Diddy wants to talk to you. Who's that? Mia says, Puff. Ava says, the audio call not completed. Mia says, I wasn't answering the calls, but I spoke with Puff. He threatened to kill me. AUSA says, what else did he threaten you with? Mia says, he said he was firing me. He said I had to leave and fly back. Remember, she was in South Africa. And he threatened to kill me. Ms. Karam wrote, I need to talk to her. Not sure what to do. He needs you to call him now, or you don't have a job. AUSA says, how did it make you feel? Mia says, desperate. I was terrified, and it was really sad. AUSA says, did you answer KK's call? Mia says, no. I texted back that I'd been asleep. It sucks to wake up to this every morning. I'm being shot on or shit on from all sides. I'm in a fucked up spot. AUSA says, and what was KK's answer? Mia says, she wrote, can you call me when you get a chance? I wrote, I'm having anxiety and night fears. AUSA says, about who? Mia says, Puff. AUSA says, who are these WhatsApp with? Mia says, Puff. I screenshotted them. I had other phones. So what did Mr. Combs write? It says, if you don't call me in 2 minutes, I'm going to tell everything. You're fired. Fuck ABC and their lawyers. Let's go to war. He says, what do you think he meant by tell everything? Mia says, he says he'll tell Cassie about the sexual assault. Now, it appears that, and this is what I'm saying, I can't wait till Brian Steele gets up there. Remember I told you, I said, isn't it odd that Mia, who is watching Cassie get abused, supposedly, by Puff for years, gets sexually assaulted by Puff and doesn't tell Cassie, like, girl, he did the same thing to me. And why would Diddy now start threatening her? Yo, I'm about to tell Cassie that I fucked you. That's a little odd, right? Unless maybe they had a secret relationship that Mia knew she needed to keep quiet and be behind the back of Cassie. Because why would Diddy threaten to tell Cassie that he fucked her? Interesting. AUSA says, what do you think he meant by fuck ABC? He says, I had written a show based on my life. And as assistant, it hit the press. It's the most I've ever gotten. He was threatening to take that away. He said, the show ever air? No. Okay? AUSA says, what did he write now? Call me now. Call me now. 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 Then don't ever call me again. I wrote back that I've been asleep. AUSA says, is that the end of the screenshots? Mia says, yes. AUSA says, what's this? Mia says, my email to Puff, then to KK. AUSA says, what did you write? Mia says, I wrote, I'm really sorry, Puff. You know I love you, smiley face. I paid for my own flight. It will cost a change, and I'm sorry to ask for the money. I'm sorry. I want to make sure you're good. At the end of the day, regardless, I love you. Now, chat, again, I think Brian Steele is going to expose her. That nigga didn't rape you. Y'all were fucking around consensually. Y'all were just doing it behind Cassie's back. Why are you, if that's your employer, okay, maybe you're just trying to use love language because he's threatening to kill you. So you're like, no, I love you, Sean, I love you. Because he's saying he's going to kill you or beat your ass. But there's too much I love yous going on here. I don't know. It feels like maybe they were fucking. I don't know. But her story is she never fucked that nigga consensually. All right. AUSA says, why did you send this? He says, he told me to return, then he told me to stay. I couldn't afford the change fees, I told him. Cece, Cassie, says she needs me right now, but of course I'll do whatever you want. Love you. Okay? Who is Cece? Mia says Cass. AUSA says, why did you write that? Mia says, because I worked for him. To him, that's all that mattered. AUSA says, why did you CC? Okay, just copy. Ms. Karam, because I needed an answer. I was in limbo. AUSA says, when you got back from South Africa, where did you work? Mia says, the office in LA. AUSA says, did you have less access to Mr. Combs? Mia says, much less. Did it make your job easier or harder? It made it almost impossible. I needed his okay for everything, and I couldn't get any responses from him. How did it make you feel? She said, defeated. AUSA says, what is this? Mia says, a note from HR to me. AUSA says, what was the date? Mia says, March 31st, 2011. The judge then says, Ms. Schmeitzer, can we take that document down? I think it needs further redaction. AUSA says, what was happening? Mia says, I was suspended without pay. AUSA says, what had happened? Mia says, he came in and didn't see that I've laid out all the options. He started ranting. I tried to point out other options. Who is this with? Mia says, James Cruz. He worked for Puff at the time. In like a managerial role, he asked for tickets. Mia says, I wrote back, Puff is currently firing me right now. He wrote back, LOL. I wrote back, no, seriously, sad face. AUSA says, what's this? Mia says, an email from D-Rock to me on March 25th, 2011. AUSA says, D-Rock asked, what happened? Mia says, I wrote, he went batshit crazy about a shirt. AUSA says, where was Puff? Mia says, with D-Rock. He was going to the doctor and going to run some other errands. I asked D-Rock to give me a heads up before they came back so I could be out the way. AUSA says, what did HR tell you? Puff wanted me suspended without pay, and I was. AUSA says, Mia, does this memo document the reasons, you were suspended? I said, no, HR told me Puff said I was being insubordinate. So basically they wrote up like some reason that, wasn't true because Puff told her directly why she was really being punished. AUSA says, did you get other documents like this from HR? Mia says, yes. How did they make you feel? So sad, like I did something wrong. AUSA said, did you continue working for Combs? Mia says, yes. AUSA says, did you feel like you could leave your job? Mia says, that wasn't a thought. I tried to run away before, but it didn't work. AUSA says, did you feel you could get other jobs? Mia says, oh no, he would have made sure. Mia says, I was scared of him. AUSA says, when did you try to run away from your job? New Year's 2010 to 2011? Where were you? She says, St. Bart's. She says, who was there? Me, Puff, Kim, the kids, some others? By the way, I think that might have been a trip Cassie didn't get invited in, right? AUSA says, where did you stay? On a yacht that Puff chartered. AUSA says, what did Mr. Combs ask you to do? He asked me to count money in the safe. He yelled, you're counting too fucking slow. He chased me out and told me, you better learn how to walk on water like Jesus, bitch. Get the fuck out of here. AUSA says, whose job was it to count money? He says, that was security's job. Mia says, I asked the crew to take me to land, but it was a hurricane or something. I hit on the 3rd floor. Damn, a yacht with 3rd floor? What type of yacht this nigga had? This nigga had a yacht with a 3rd floor? Holy shit, let me see what type of yacht is that. Yacht with a 3rd floor. That's crazy. That nigga had a fucking cruise ship. Oh my God. Nah, Diddy rich. Holy shit. Damn, okay. All right, okay. Who spoke to you? Kim. She tried to console me and said, don't worry about it. I saw Puff coming towards me. I ran and hid in the cabin. AUSA says, did the crew take you to land in a tender boat? Mia says, yes, but when I got called, I had to come back. AUSA says, were you able to leave the country? Mia says, no, my passport was on the boat. Puff's staff had it. AUSA says, did you go back to the boat? Mia says, yes. Mia says, I was told to go get the car, to go get the plane, to go to Vegas with Puff. In the car, could you hear Puff's call? Mia says, yes. He was telling his chief of staff, Christina Karam, that I needed to be suspended. Making up a story I didn't get to finish. He yelled, shut the fuck up. AUSA says, you left Combs' company in 2017, didn't you? She said, yes. I spoke with Brian Ufford. We were editing a Bad Boy documentary. I was producing that. AUSA says, what did Brian tell you? Mia says that Mr. Combs wanted to end Revolt Films. The company was going away. So how did you feel? I think I saw snot coming out of my nose for a while. Oh, my God. I was worried. I had been told Revolt Films was the only company that had made money that year. So how did you feel? Mia said that I had done something wrong. Attorney AUSA says, what did Brian Ufford say? Says that they would work out severance, but it was the holidays. Did you speak to anyone else? Christina Karam. I had a little bit of time to horrifically process what had happened. KK said, you're still working on a documentary. AUSA says, did you? She says, yes, I was doing it until March or April. AUSA says, what did you do after it? I cried myself to sleep. I ignored all the calls. Did you have a conversation with Cassie after? Bia says, I can never tell who it was with. I couldn't tell who was with or without Puff, so I didn't respond. Mia says, KK says Puff couldn't believe I would go against him. I'd gotten an employment attorney. KK says Puff couldn't believe it. Did you get paid? I said, yes. After 9 months, my attorney proposed a mediation. They asked for like $10 million. AUSA says, who came up with that figure? Ooh, what year was this? Okay. Anyway. Who came up with that figure? My lawyers. Did you bring up violent incidents? A few of them. Okay, so it looked like she threatened to sue way back in the day, too. I felt that I was doing something horrible. I was breaking the idea of confidentiality, telling secrets. I felt I was wrong and I was shameful. Did you ever bring up the sexual assaults? Oh, no. I was going to die with those trauma, right? So AUSA says, how much did you receive? I got $200,000. My lawyers got that much, too. So basically $400,000. So Diddy paid out $400,000. She initially asked for $10 million, okay? What was it for? It was for bonuses that hadn't been paid and out of pocket. AUSA says, would you return the money to never have this happen again? Brian Steele says, objection. Judge says overrule. Mia says, oh, absolutely. AUSA says, do you have any other lawsuits against Mr. Combs? She then says no. So it looked like she signed some document saying she could never sue for any of these things, but it's probably for that time period, which probably also includes sexual assault. So Diddy probably crossed his T, dot his I with whatever he's signed when he gave her the $200,000. So I know she feel fleeced because Cassie got 20 M's and she got 200,000. And right now when the lawsuits are hot, she can't really sue, I think, right? It said, did you contact Mr. Combs again? She said, yes, when Miss Kim died, Kim Porter that is, and when Andre Harrell died. Did you tell him you loved him in these messages? Yes, that's how I would normally speak with him. AUSA says, are you aware of Cassie's lawsuit? Yes, November 2023. Have you spoken with Cassie since the suit? Yes, we talk a lot. Then not. We both hide our phones in the depression. We hide from our phones in the depression thing. Then a few days ago, just personal stuff and I love yous. Did you speak about your testimony? Oh, no, which I don't believe this at all. They met right before, well, after Diddy's arrest. They talked about possibly testifying, 100%. Right? Well, who cares? That's what she says. They didn't talk about it. AUSA says, after the suit in 2023, did anyone contact you? Yes, D-Rock. He was like my big brother. AUSA says, he said, how are you? What was your response? He says, D-Rock. AUSA says, why all the exclamation points? She says, because I love exclamation points and D-Rock. Mia says, I understand D-Rock was no longer with Puff either. Yeah, Mia says, I understand D-Rock was no longer with Puff either. He and his wife had a restaurant in the Poconos. AUSA says, I'm about to call you. He wrote, I'm about to call you. What's that date? It's November 30th, 2023. AUSA says, did D-Rock call you? Mia says, yes. What happened on the call? Steele says, objection. Judge says, ask again. What did he say? Judge says, overruled. He started with personal stuff, then said the news is crazy. It wasn't like that. It was normal fighting. AUSA says, was it normal fighting? Mia says, absolutely not. D-Rock says, Puff misses you. Implied everyone agreed. Mia says, I immediately thought, oh my God. Steele says, objection. Grounds non-responsive. They do a sidebar and then they're back. AUSA says, what did D-Rock say he was? He said he just landed in Miami. He was going to be at Puff's. He was going to go take care of Christian. D-Rock says, maybe you could say something. How did you respond? I pretended I'd talk to Puff. Did you want to? No. I pretended I would talk to Puff. Did you want to? No, I was scared. He called me right after. So it looked like D-Rock calls when the Cassie lawsuit dropped and says, yo, I'm on my way to Puff. By the way, why did Cassie say all that bullshit? Like, this shit was mad consensual. They were just fighting like, toxic couples, huh? And she's like, and he's like, yo, I'm about to be at Puff's crib. Yo, I'm going to have you talk to Puff, all right? And she's like, yeah, okay. So she's saying she wasn't down with it, right? AUSA says, okay, so here we go. Says, did Did you want to know I was scared? He called me right after D-Rock. He said, how did you react? I threw my phone behind the couch and ran out. Why? It was just so triggering. Did you hear from D-Rock again? Mia says yes. AUSA says, what did D-Rock write? Mia says that your boy doesn't want you to do anything, just to talk. I didn't want to. I just wanted it to go away. AUSA says, what then did D-Rock write to you? Mia says he wrote, I can't believe you're not hitting me back. It was February 22nd, 2024. Okay? So it looked like she stops to respond to D-Rock because D-Rock is basically telling her to talk to Puff, and she didn't really want to talk to Puff. She threw the phone behind whatever and ran. Mia says, I knew he wouldn't stop, so I wrote back. I said I was scuba diving all day. I didn't have our phones on the boat. Was that true? No. I told D-Rock I called Puff, but there was no answer. I wanted to play neutral. AUSA says, D-Rock asked, how can I send you something? What did you think he meant? He says, money. I said, no. I'm always ready to help y'all out. AUSA says, I'm allowed to send my sister a gift. I said, did he? Mia says, no. AUSA says, what did you think D-Rock was trying to do? Mia says, was trying to find out for Puff if I was a threat. AUSA says, did Mr. Coleman text you in February 2024? Mia says, yes. He said, call me when you have 10 minutes, love. AUSA says, and this one in February 27th, he said, I need my memory jogged. Ooh, did you respond? No, I didn't want anything to do with him. He was the person I was traumatized by. I knew this was all a front. AUSA says, what was the last message? Mia says, I think so. I got some. Steele says, objection. Judge says, sustained. Wow. She is, I understand why Matthew Russell said that this might be a better witness than Cassie. Because Cassie's like testimony, there's part of you that could say, yo, Cassie is kind of down with it. Or Cassie is only now having buyer's remorse. Cassie wanted to be with Diddy. She wanted to be his wife. She wanted to have his kid. And she never got that, and that's why she's filing charges, because she's now with the broke-ass nigga, right? With this woman, she's claiming she never wanted to have sex with Diddy. She never had a romantic relationship with Diddy. And basically, Diddy raped her. Diddy beat her. And basically, she was trying to do everything to get away from him. And Diddy also killed her career. But also what they're painting right here is that Diddy was trying to intimidate her or probably try to bribe her, okay? So he was trying to obstruct justice because there was an investigation that was impending into the criminal activities of Diddy. So Diddy was having people call her and be like, yo, you want a gift? And she felt like they were trying to feel her out to see if you're not down to take a gift, you might be working with the cops or something, right? Cool, let's keep it going. All right, says, do you work now? She says, no. I suffer from complex PTSD. The judge says, sidebar. AUSA says, so what are your symptoms? And Mia says, misinterpreting emails. Someone calls my name from across the room and all the feelings of getting in trouble come flooding back. I triple guess myself. AUSA says, who caused it? Mia says, Puff. Judge says, break. And they take a break. They come back. Mr. Steele, can you put the binders on the jurors' chairs? Ms. Smyers, do you have any objections? Smyers says, there's an exhibit we're requesting hearsay redactions to, but we could hash it out. Judge says, put the binders on the chairs, okay? All rise. Here's a cross-examination, and YSL Steele is now checked into the game. Check it out, Chad. He says, because, Mr. Combs, you suffered a great deal, right? Mia says, right. Steele says, just seen him call your number made you throw your phone, right? She says, yup. Steele says, he made you do things that are unthinkable, right? She says, yup. Steele says, making you sleep in a room with a lock. Or I think it was without a lock. I think that's what was the way. Without a lock. And coming in and violating you in the most unthinkable way, right? She says, yup. He says, you said his conduct was the worst thing that's ever happened to you, right? She says, yup. Steele says, all right, well, look at this notebook. Okay, I love Steele. Steele don't play around. Like, he'll gas you up and be like, word? So it's the worst thing ever, right? Word. I bet. Open that book real quick. He said, I moved for admission 1702 to 1710. These are exhibits. Smyers says, these are under seal. Steele says, whatever the court says. We got redacted versions anyway. Mia, this is a social media post of you in 2013. Mia says, yes. It's your personal account, right? This is what you're doing? Says, yes, that's my personal account. Steele says, you wrote, this is what we do when you're not around. I'm Diddy. Ciroc, right? She says, yes, that's me. So you tagged him years after you said he raped you. She said, yes. Okay. This is July 4th, 2013. Who hands are those? Cass and me. You wrote rich as fuck and Cece. Who's Cece? Cassie. Brian Steele says, what does Cece stand for? It's just a nickname. Have you ever heard about Cassie Combs? Steele asks. Mia says, oh, that makes sense. Steele says, Here you say he got coffee for you in Forbes list. She says, yes. Steele says, so you say he made you take drugs against your will at Burning Man, but you post about it? She says, right. Steele says, you posted a picture with him here. Why would you post a picture with a man terrorizing you? So they're showing her in her Instagram, like, yo, you posed up with this nigga, like after he raped you, he's terrorizing you, he's beating you, she's like, yeah. Steele says, and this video depicting Mr. Combs as a doctor delivering your baby. Mia says, it was a funny video. I was proud to be in it. Steele says, Mr. Combs' birthday is significant to you too. You did 2 shots with him, right? Mia says, yes. Steele says, oh, I forgot. Alcohol overcame you. The 2 shots put you under, right? She says, yes. So you think you were drugged, right? She says, I didn't say that. And she, to be clear, she never said she got drugged, but she implied she got drugged by saying 2 shots took her out. Steele says, a person you don't really know put his mouth on your mouth without permission, right? She says, yes. His hands was up your dress and onto your person, right? You remember that? It was paralyzing, right? She says, yes. You woke up in that chair, you told the jury. So you blacked out, he raped you, you woke up in that chair, right? She says, I did. But what about this damn message right here? You know you done fucked up, right? And this one. And then the other same day you posted something off the anniversary of you being sexually assaulted according to your testimony. So it looked like she's still posting Diddy years after. He says, I don't celebrate as the anniversary of that, but it's his birthday. Remember, Diddy wanted to fuck her or did fuck her or raped her on his birthday. So they're like, why would you celebrate the anniversary of your rape? She's like, I don't look at it like that. I just look at it as his birthday, so I celebrate it afterwards. Steele says, what did you write? Mia says, thank you for giving me an extended family for life. You're fucking funny. I love you. Steele says, you're in a tutu next to Combs, right? Mia says, yes. Is he holding his private part in his hand? She says, I guess so. Steele says, you were proud of Mr. Combs? Mia says, of course. You'd post the good times. Steele says, you wrote extended family for life. You're forever one of my great fans. This is about a man, or friend, I guess probably that was. This is about a man who traumatized you, right? She said, I did write that. Steele says, who's your mentor and brother that you're writing about with this picture right here? Puff. You did a lot of collages. A lot of them got you and Diddy. Who picked out the thumbnails? You did that, right? Yeah. What did you write here? Who let me have my hair like that? You're with Mr. Combs in this picture, right? Yup. Here you say, look, Ma, I'm in Billboard on Times Square, right? She says, it's a play on My Name is in Lights. And what about this photo right here? That's me and Cassie, where we're going to Istanbul. Steele says, did Mr. Combs have to approve of both of y'all going on that trip? Mia says, absolutely. Steele says, and this photo? So we're on the Sprinter on the way to Cass's club appearance. And what about this one? That's the W Hotel in Istanbul. Steele says, what did you write here? About Muhammad Ali's birthday with Puff. I took the photo. Oh, so you took the photo. You took one photo? I think I took multiple photos, but this was the best one. Steele says, this is November 4th, 5 years after you got sexually assaulted, right? She says, yes. Steele says, what did you write? She says, thank you for being my friend. Hashtag happy birthday Diddy. Hashtag I'm so hot, I'm throwing panties at myself. And you have Mr. Combs shirtless in 2 of the pictures. 2, right? Yeah, he's kind of always shirtless. So Mia, you said you were sexually assaulted so many times you can't remember, right? AUSA says objection, misstates the testimony. She never said so many times she can't remember. They sustain that. Steele says, have you met with prosecutors? Mia says, yes. Steele says, more than 27 times? She says, I don't remember the number. Do you remember telling you don't remember how many times you were sexually assaulted before? I don't know if I phrased it that way. This has ruined you though, right? You're broken, right? You're just broken. Well, the sexual abuse was part of the way he ruined me. Yeah. So you wrote, "Thank you for being the good kind of crazy, inspiring me every day." Yeah, I mean, I don't think people write bad stuff about their life on Instagram back then. So why did you promote it? It was my job to promote. It was kind of like cycle of ups and downs. Mia says, when he was calling me his best friend, I wasn't afraid of him. Steele says, so you weren't afraid of the man who stole your innocence? There's objection. They overrule it. Steele says, you have a family? Yes, parents and a sister. Friends? AUSA is now asking for time. They can see Brian Steele is trying to put belt to ass. He ain't trying to go. He's trying to get to it. Steele says, when you posted this, you still had a friend? She says, I had no sounding board. I had to go get permission to go to my grandfather's funeral. Says the jury has an email with D-Rock. You could express yourself though, right? She said, I reached out to him. Steele says, what's this? That's my friends at Funny or Die. I'm in the video. Steele says, what did you write? You know, you're a celebrity when you were spraying champagne at Funny or Die. Steele says, what's this? My birthday post for Justin. That's Puff's son. Steele says, and this one? That was a Ciroc promo. Hashtag. Steele says, you're in it with Mr. Combs, right? She says, yes. Steele says, did you ever say anything about Mr. Combs violating you? Mia says, never. Here? That's Puffy and Jimmy Iovine, and they're legends. Steele says, he traumatized you though, right? It says, yes. Steele then says, you wrote, Mia says, watch Puff tonight on Fuse. I convinced him to make a door on his TV set and call it the Diddy door. Steele says, you post a picture of the person who's ruined your life? Mia says, yeah, and the guy who's also my boss. Steele says, who made you post this? Mia says, no one. Steele says, how do you forget about waking up with a man on top of you having his way with you? She says, I was in fear of upsetting him. The moments other than when we were best friends. Says, how were you best friends with the man that you said raped you? I don't know. Ask my therapist. I don't know. Steele says, what did you write here? Fuck off, Patron, with a picture of Puff dancing with his tequila. Steele says, and in this photo, is Mr. Combs close to you? She says, yes. Says, you were producing the show, right? It's like, yeah, Funny or Die, he did it. But I was getting producer credits. He says, can we get a sidebar? Said, AUSA, yo, Steele is being, wow. The judge says, we'll give the jurors their lunch break and we'll stay and hash it out. They said the witness has not burdened to bring forth evidence to support her claims. It's our burden. Judge says, Mr. Steele, you'll have to ask, does she have texts or emails or something of the sort? Steele says, understood. Oh, my God. I got to hear how this looks in court. Brian Steele is applying belt to ass. Let's see it, chat. Belt to ass. Okay. All right, here you go.
United States versus Sean Combs, day 13, week 3. It's Friday. Yay. So we finished the direct examination this morning of Mia, Diddy's former assistant, director of development at Revolt TV. And then we started the cross-examination, which was done by Brian Steele. This morning, before the jury came in, they were discussing the fact that Diddy needs more time with his lawyers. He was saying that he doesn't have any more minutes left at MDC, so there was some back and forth about that. And Diddy was very intent on telling his lawyers, I don't have any minutes. Although the judge said that he spoke to MDC, and Diddy had only used 47 out of 300 minutes. And these minutes are to use the phone to talk to his lawyer. So they're trying to figure that out. But anyway, let's get to the finishing of the direct testimony. We saw this back and forth between basically Diddy, Mia, Christina Coram, while Mia was in South Africa with Cassie and this whole thing went down about Michael B. Jordan and Diddy being somewhere with Gina and Cassie seeing, it really just showed that Diddy and Christina Korum called Mia over 40 times in a row at different points, text messages, emails, and Mia just said she felt incredibly stressed and felt just incredibly overwhelmed and stuck in the middle of all of this stuff. And I think it was just kind of highlighting this toxic work environment where she just felt trapped. We also learned about this I felt was interesting, and this came at the very end of her testimony. So it was 20, I think she said it was 2016 or 2017. That was the last year that she worked for Diddy or for Revolt TV. And she said that, she had met with the COO of Bad Boy, and he relayed to her that Diddy didn't want to do the Revolt film anymore, which was what she was doing. And so she said she was upset, she felt betrayed, but they were going to work out severance and all this stuff. And, then she later found out they wanted her to finish with this project she was working on, a Bad Boy documentary. And after that, she could work out her severance, her pay, or whatever she was owed. So she said she was told to get an employment lawyer to help out with this. But when she brought this employment lawyer to the table, she was getting messages, I think it was from either KK or somebody on Diddy's staff, saying that Diddy felt so betrayed that she would, bring a lawyer into this and all this stuff. And so they basically sat down, had a meeting, and I think she was initially paid $400,000, but she only got $200,000 of this. She said, the other half went to her lawyers. And the government asked, would you give this all back if it meant you didn't go through what you went through? And she said, of course. And then I thought this was very important testimony. We learn that, sorry, it's very sunny. We learn that D-Rock, Diddy's bodyguard or one of his security people, reached out to her, Mia, maybe a couple days after Cassie's civil lawsuit dropped. And he just kind of said, Mia, what's up? And she was like so excited to hear from D-Rock because they were very close. And he then just says, wow, this stuff is so crazy with, Puff and Cass. Like, we all know they just fought like a normal couple. And then Mia said she felt a little bit nervous and it just didn't sound right because she's like, oh, I kind of know where this is going. And also, D-Rock was there for so much of this. How does he not, how is he saying that? And, she said that D-Rock was like, can I call you? Let's talk. And she's like, I don't want anything to do with this, basically. And he kept texting her and saying, Puff just wants to talk to you. And she was really just being very evasive. She said she was scuba diving. She didn't have good service. It was just really obvious, what she was doing. She was uncomfortable. And then she said that Puff called her. And she said she had this reaction where she threw her phone on the couch and ran out of her house because she just had this PTSD. Oh, and by the way, I'll get there after, sorry. So she didn't answer, and then D-Rock texts her again, and, he just said, man, you're not responding to me. What's going on? Kind of getting annoyed at her. And she was like, oh gosh, I better say something. So, and then he said something like, did you ever talk to Puff? And she wrote back, oh, sorry, I don't have good service. She said, she lied, and she said, he called me, which he did, and she said, I called him back, and I didn't leave a message, so I left it at that. And that's, they said, did you call him back? And she's like, no, I definitely didn't. So eventually, D-Rock kind of sends her this message saying that he wants to send her a gift. And she took that as he wanted to send her money. And she kind of noted that she was in debt at the time, but she was like, no, I would never take a gift from you. No. And he said something like, oh, I can't just send my sister a gift. And she's like, no. So she didn't get anything, made that very clear. And I can't remember if I said this. I already did another report before this, but D-Rock in 2023, she testified that he did not work for Diddy at the time, but he was in Miami doing something for Diddy's son. So I'm not sure if he was on the payroll or whatever, but I thought that was an important note. So yeah, he says, you know, can I give you this money? And she's like, no, or this gift. Sorry, not money. She took it as money. So then in February of 2024, Diddy texts her and says, hey, can we talk love? She doesn't text him. About 5 days later, at the end of Feb, she gets another text from him. And he says, hey, I just need your help jogging my memory. He said, you were my right hand for such a long time.
Oh, okay. Matthew Russell had said, you need your memory jogged. I was like, why would Diddy text that? No, I think Diddy was like, hey, I'm just trying to jog my own memory. Can we talk?
You know, I just need you to help me remember who was around me during that time. And, you know, he just said, I just want to talk. I hope you're well. Love, again. And she never reached out to him, and she said she hasn't heard from him since. And then she said that she can't work because she has just PTSD from Diddy and all the trauma that she experienced. So yeah, that was a moment. And you know, a lot of you guys have been asking or commenting about juror reactions, and I wish I had more to report. They are, in my opinion, you know, they are pretty stoic. I mean, they laugh when it's appropriate. They just have kind of blank faces on or serious faces on. I did notice two men in particular. One man seems to be really intent on reading all of the email exchanges and the text exchanges. He's always kind of looking at those messages on the screen. And another guy, he just always looks really like perplexed, I noticed. But, oh, something smells out here. Sorry. But yeah, oh, and there's one woman who sometimes just seems to have like a resting kind of smile when she's listening, but not when it's anything traumatic or serious. So it's so hard to read these guys. And you know, today we saw Diddy shake his head again when Mia was testifying about sexual assault. But and this is, you know, I'll go into this a little bit later, but just briefly to touch on the cross-examination, which was started before lunch by Brian Steele. He pulled up a lot of Mia's old social media posts on Instagram, and these were actually in a binder and the binder was handed out to the jury by the defense, because I think that they're having an issue on whether or not this can be submitted as actual evidence for the jury to reference at the end when they're deliberating. So I think the fix for now was to give them these binders. So all these photos are from 2008, let's say, to 2016, and they're of Mia posting things about Diddy. She loves him. He's an inspiration. She thanks him. He's her best friend. She's so thankful that he's silly in a good way. Just a series of pictures. And what's notable is the birthday post, because she said that she was first sexually assaulted by Diddy on his birthday, November 4th, 2009, his 40th birthday. And so Brian Steele's like, this is a significant day for you because you were traumatized on that day. And she's like, yes. And he's like, but you continue to post all of these birthday pictures year after year, really thanking him, loving him, you know, all of this stuff, even though that's a day of trauma for you. And she's like, yeah, he was my boss. He was my mentor. And her answer for a lot of this is the highs were high and the lows were low. So we saw a picture that she reposted by Meek Mill with the game and Cassie, and Meek Mill, obviously. They're all in a hot tub with bikinis or shirtless. We saw a Burning Man picture with
Too easy, right? Too easy. Yeah.
Groovy Lou, and this was when the tour bus thing, by the way, happened with the plate of cocaine or ketamine, whatever. So and she said, take me back to Burning Man. So Steele's like, take you back? So you had fun? And she's like, well, I went to multiple Burning Mans with him, trying to be like, this may not be the one. But yeah, a lot of that, and I'm sure we'll have more later. So I'll see you this afternoon.
Okay. Let me see if homie here did he drive something?